predictions for the future, for how NUI is going to trend. And these fall into 5 different categories. 1, motion sensors, motion tracking sensors. Right now, today, there's specialty. Specialty items, specific things you need to order and integrate with and use. And just like many other things, like web cameras used to be specialty things. They were expensive, and you had to get them, and you had to have special software to use them. Like, I forget what the name of the early ones were, but early video camera teleconference software was not very common. But now they're integrated in everything. Most of your cell phones have 2 web cameras, and you can't buy a laptop without a web camera. So they're integrated in everything. We're going to see the same thing with motion sensors. They're going to be integrated into devices, into embeddable components. We could make an entire smart conference room by putting these sensors around, and then the room would just know when you walk in, and then you look into the screen and ask the conference room agent, the meeting agent, pull up my information about this whatever, or do a search on this idea that we were just discussing. And it's not necessarily using hand tracking for everything, but being able to track the people and be aware of that adds to the fullness of the experience. So we're going to see these sensors being integrated. We already see this with Google Tango. There's a special cell phone they've created that has a depth camera built into it, and they're using it for doing mobile scanning, just like Kinect Fusion, but a little bit different in the quality level, as well as augmented reality gaming. So it can see like this desk and the chair and this little like play dog that's running around and throwing a ball around and stuff like that. Touchless interaction, the hand tracking stuff. So right now, we think of play spaces. There's a specific area I have to stand in order to interact. And I have to be aware of this, and the application has to help guide me into the play space so that I don't, as I naturally move around, I violate, go outside of it. Well, we're going to see this turn into interactive spaces, interactive rooms, where I mentioned if we have these sensors where we can just put them wherever we need, then we don't have to worry about, oh, I'm in the interactive area and I need to have you move over here and whatever. It's just enough sensors that the system can be aware of where people are and what they're doing in the context of the interaction. One of our applications with the Liberty Video Wall, we took this approach where we have the 3 Kinect sensors across the front of the video wall, and it creates a continuous interactive space where you don't have to think about the sensors, you're not even aware of the sensors, you're just near the wall and it's responding to you regardless of where you are in this 20-foot wide space, as long as you're close enough that it makes sense for interaction. Data mobility. Mobility is a hot topic keyword, mobile devices and everything. But I'm talking about data mobility, data itself. Right now we have device silos. Well, I'm using Windows Phone, you're using iOS, and he's using Android. And we have the data can sync up to the cloud and to my laptop or whatever. And that's cool, that's using the cloud. But it's still kind of a silo. It's one platform that you have to deal with. We're going to see in the future a society of devices where it doesn't matter what system you're on, you should be able to walk up to a room, this interactive room, and say, well, I'm going to kind of slide that information up here, I'm going to grab that diagram and put it onto my device. And that wouldn't actually transfer directly, it would probably go through the cloud or some other system. But the data can be mobile and move around between these devices in a seamless fashion and create a more elegant experience. Collaboration. Today, humans learn the tools. We have to figure out how does SharePoint do this thing? I don't know. I'm trying to collaborate with you. I need to learn this tool to do it. Or I need to learn how to use a particular device or install certain software. Well, we're going to see this inverted. Tools are going to learn more about humans. With more information available to the applications with these new sensors, they're going to be able to respond to us in a more human-like fashion. So it's almost going to be like you have someone sitting there doing these tasks for you, and you don't have to think about it as a tool. It's just a thing that you use, a thing you communicate with. And it's
like Nest. That's a good concrete example.
yeah, so the Nest thermostat sensor is approaching that kind of utility, or that type of relationship. And finally, the human-computer relationship, and I spoke to this a little bit. Right now we think of computers as tools. We use them to do certain things. But we're going to see them as partnerships. We're going to have relationships with them. We're going to have even emotional connections to our devices. People have, to some extent, emotional connections to their things because I've personalized my phone, but we're going to have the same type of relationship to the computer in general, the software that runs on it, because it's personalized and it responds to us in a human-like fashion. And I've told Gordon and Jonas they need to see the movie Her, but if any of you have seen Her, which came out late last year, it's a sci-fi story about a guy who basically falls in love with his future version of Siri. And it's so realistic that he can have that relationship. And I'm sure that this is diagnosed on the psychiatric disorder list or whatever. But so I'm not necessarily saying that we want to go to that extreme, but to the extent that we naturally have relationships with our animals, with other people, with things that we've personalized, and we have emotional connections to them, we're going to have the same thing with our computer software. And so those are the trends that I see that are going to affect our industry, and it would be a good idea to be aware of these and track them and think about how can we get ahead of the curve and create solutions for our customers that are future-looking and take advantage of some of these ideas about how we interact with computers.